Hi, everyone. Harry here to talk about a class action lawsuit brought by a U.S. citizen who has twice been arrested and roughed up in the Southern District of Alabama, where he lives, by ICE agents. Let's just talk first about the situation and the law. So it's really revolting, and it's on video, as many of these things are. So he's on a construction site in Alabama. ICE agents enter, at least according to the lawsuit. They don't have a judicial warrant, only an administrative warrant. And they pass by all the white and black workers without detaining them and go straight for the Latino workers. In the first episode where he's arrested, they tackle his brother. He begins to film the scene, and the officers go up to him and say, "You're making this more complicated than you want to." And then they grab him, wrestle him to the ground, and he's yelling, "I'm a citizen." And but two other officers subdue him, telling him, and this is on video, and it's ugly, get on the fucking ground. So that arrest happens. I'm going to talk about that and the other arrests. Just let me fill in the facts here. They find he gives the ID. They call it fake. Keep him handcuffed and detain him for more than an hour in the sun until finally he says, "Run my social security number." They do. He's a citizen. They release him. Then second time in June, he's working in a house. They corner him in a bedroom. They order him to come with them. They march him outside, and he shows his real ID. They said it could be fake. Again, 20 to 30 minutes. Okay, let me go straight to the law. This is lawless. The law, even the law as ICE itself represents it, says you're looking at people. None of them, you don't have really information on any of them. The most you can do is briefly detain to ask a question or two. And if those questions then ripen into probable cause that the person has committed a crime, including by being in the country illegally, then and only then can you arrest. And an arrest is simply, when they put him in cuffs, when they hold him, when a reasonable person would feel he's not free to leave, he's been arrested. Okay, so no roughing up, no pushing around, etc., and no nothing unless you've developed information from this lawful stop to say this person, in fact. And one other important point, this is playing out now in a lawsuit based in Los Angeles. You need to have a good reason for thinking this person has violated the law, in this case being an unlawful alien. And guess what doesn't count? The sort of stuff they're using, and they allege in this lawsuit they're using, like ethnicity, like accent, like the kind of work you're doing. In other words, things that many American citizens, it's also the case for by particularized suspicion. The courts have been very clear most recently, the LA court and Judge Breyer in San Francisco, particular. I know that this very person previously was XYZ, etc. Not, brown skin and speaks with an accent, etc. Okay, so now let's apply this to both this guy's arrests. Patently illegal, and in fact, the opposite of what they're saying. They say when the legal spokesperson and also the head of the agency and also someone who's just been accused of taking $50,000 in a bag, Tom Homan, gets on. He says we can detain and ask questions, and based on what we hear, among other things. Yep, that's the law. But guess what? This is not it at all. You go to the person. He says, "I am a U.S. citizen." They say it could be fake. You better have a friggin' good reason, because everything you've learned so far says get your mitts off this guy. And that instead of doing that, they move to the sort of full-scale tackling and arrest, that's just a patent Fourth Amendment violation. You can ask a couple questions, and if you don't get probable cause to believe a crime has been committed, go to the next guy. So it's sort of inconceivable that you go to an American citizen, you believe or have some particularized suspicion, God knows what it is, but it's about to be dispelled that this person is here illegally, and the American citizen responds to your question, shows his ID, how that can possibly be taken to be a showing that, in fact, now you can arrest him. It's the exact opposite. And in fact, what we know is happening. The videos are out there. People are testifying to it in the field. ICE is very poorly trained, and they are not going up and asking the gentle questions that have been approved by the Supreme Court under the so-called Terry versus Ohio opinion of the late 60s. They're going in, clubs ablazing, tackling people. You don't want to do this. You're going to make trouble for yourself. They are, in other words, going whole hog, brutal conduct, as if, with doubtless what qualifies under the Fourth Amendment as an arrest. Indeed, what probably qualifies as excessive force. The Fourth Amendment has two separate provisions. One is you can't arrest without probable cause. The other is you can't use excessive force. And at least the things have been described, and the tapes seem that both of those have gone off kilter. Now, let me get a little legal and nerdy on you and tell you the way I think this case is maybe going to go. And it is standing. Okay. So this guy, he's a citizen. He was arrested twice. And that should mean something. But the Supreme Court said in a case in the 80s that somebody who was the subject of an unlawful police action can't use that as the basis for reforming or getting them to change policies because, said the court in that case, the Lyons case out of Los Angeles, Lyons is no more likely to be arrested again than any citizen of Los Angeles. He doesn't have a special stake. And he was like, what do you mean? How about looking at my bruises? But the court said, and there's some, force here. Yes, but that doesn't mean it'll happen again. Now, here we have a case where not only does it mean it could happen again, it did happen again. The guy was arrested and twice, and in a pretty small area where he is one of apparently a relatively few Hispanic-looking people, etc. So, I think he'll say, this is twice. This is enough. Enter relief. Tell them to stop doing it. Construct a class action, which is what he's asking for, citizens who are being stopped and ill-treated, and order the government to stop. Now that, in a way, the government is saying we're not doing that, and if it's happening, it's by rogue agents, etc. Sure doesn't seem that way. Sure seems like ICE is showing up and is trained to basically be violating the Fourth Amendment. But the government will say otherwise, and on standing they'll say, okay, the guy was arrested twice. No reason to think he's going to be arrested a third time. Now, it's statistics, and you can think about it. To me, that he's arrested twice does make it more likely that he'll be arrested a third time, but maybe not likely enough. So the way this is going to play out, and it'll feel unfair, is you'll see the court considering, is there standing? Because in order for there to be standing of the kind of relief they're looking for, which really is basically, and this has been the relief entered elsewhere, comply with the law, might you please? You say you're not doing these things, so just stop doing them. Stop cracking people over the heads. Comply with the Fourth Amendment. Make it only a short stop. Ask a question and go away if it doesn't ripen. That's the relief. But you could well see the U.S. saying he doesn't have standing to ask for that relief. And court, you don't have jurisdiction over this case because, yeah, he's been stopped twice. That doesn't make it particularly likely he'll be stopped a third time. So that's how to play out a different case from the one the Supreme Court handled, obviously, back when the guy had been subjected to unlawful force once. Now we have twice. So you can see how the argument could be a little different, but I think that will be the focus. And there's a real chance this ends in the sort of unsatisfying and troubling way the cases that go away on standing do end, meaning we're not saying what they did was right. We're saying you, plaintiff, cannot bring it. So that's what to keep your eye out for in this just filed attempt at a class action lawsuit. Talk to you later. Thanks for tuning in. If you enjoyed this video and other Talking Feds content, please take a second to like and subscribe. Talk to you later.